Vanessa, thank you very much for joining me this morning to talk about your career story. How are you?
Very good, Brendan. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm delighted to be able to tell you a little bit about myself.
I'm really looking forward to it. So you were working for a company called Eih2, which is one of the first hydrogen based companies in Ireland. Can you talk a little bit about the company, but also what you do there and what your role is?
Yeah, sure. So EIH2 and what makes it a little bit, I suppose, different from other hydrogen companies is that it's green hydrogen, so it's renewable hydrogen, and it's the first one in Ireland. It would be a production type of company, production of green hydrogen, and green hydrogen as well is used in many type of industries and to decarbonize those type of industries. So the company itself, like obviously, is contributed to climate action. It's very new, I would say, because like it's in the stages of innovation as well, like in terms of research, in terms of funding, and that's where I jump in as well. Like I am funding and policy manager for EIH2, and my job is a lot to do with the government. Like Ireland, for instance, doesn't have a hydrogen strategy. So what we're doing at EIH2 is supporting different type of working groups, lobbying with the government, lobbying with like the Department of Climate and Communications, Environment, Climate and Communications, and talking to them and saying like this is how green hydrogen is going to contribute to fighting climate change. And yeah, it's very recent as well. The company is almost 1 year, so it hasn't been long. But at the same time, as I said, like it's such an innovative industry at the moment, and very exciting times as well. Like we are learning from other countries like Germany, Japan, Australia, who are way more advanced in that sense. But because of Ireland's natural resources, we feel like very positive about it. So there are a lot of high hopes for it.
Very exciting. And as a policy and funding manager, Vanessa, what is it you do like on a day-to-day basis? Can you tell people a little bit about what that means?
Yeah. So on the policy side, for instance, I would be following open consultations from the government, like consultations on hydrogen. It could be consultations as well, like as the carbon budgets, for instance. And what I do is analyze those consultations and say like how that can affect either the hydrogen industry or how actually green hydrogen can contribute to that. So for instance, the most recent consultation that we put together, it was that we responded was a consultation on offshore phase 2, which means like because it's green hydrogen, it will use renewable electricity to produce hydrogen. That's the difference with other type of hydrogen. Like that's why it's sustainable and it's green. And what we did there is actually making contributions to this consultation, saying like we would need this electricity for the production of hydrogen, and this is how that hydrogen is going to be used and is going to contribute to Ireland's economy. So that would be in terms of policy as well. Like also, we are part of different working groups like Hydrogen Ireland, Wind Energy Ireland, and it's working groups means that a lot of people come together and discuss as well this type of policy and how we might affect the industry or how we will contribute to it. With Hydrogen Ireland, actually, we chair the working group on policy and advocacy. So it's very much building those relationships to echo the same message that we want to bring to the government. And it's very interesting because not all the time we will agree on something, and it's really good to see different point of views and discuss that, and at the same time propose to the government how we from the private sector could support and how we will make the economy grow, like economic development there. So it's a role from different sides. And on the side of funding, then there are different funding opportunities. Hydrogen is quite new, I would say, like green hydrogen. So in that sense, like we follow as well call for proposals from the European Commission, and those that would be kind of tailored for us, that we could say like we should apply for this one. And again, it's about analyzing the call, looking for partners. Usually, obviously, European calls require not only one country, but partners from 3 countries at least. So in that sense as well, we're lobbying with different groups as part of other type of networks like Hydrogen Europe. So recognizing those calls, then as well, like we're recognizing calls at the national level as well that the government opens, and looking for partners and pursuing those opportunities.
Yeah, lots going on, and you said the company's about a year old. So, how do you find working in a startup? Is this your first time working in a startup? What's your impression of a career in a startup organization?
It's very exciting. It's different for sure. Before I joined the company, I used to work in the university, which was like way more people are in University College Cork. A lot more colleagues, different areas, while in Eih2 we are 11 or 12 people, I think. So like we all know each other. It's exciting because it's recent, and also the founder of the company is a businessman who's got like a great business career. So it's been interesting to learn as well. Like for me, every day is a learning process, I would say, because since it's green hydrogen, my colleagues are very technical. Like they come from engineering backgrounds, and to understand that and actually translate into policy, it's been both exciting and challenging at the same time. But I think that there are so many opportunities at the moment that the excitement is there, and you can tell that it's not only our company but different companies around the industry that we feel the same. And what we're trying to do is actually accelerate this process for Ireland, so we don't lose the opportunities that are in Europe and I would say worldwide because of the geographic location of Ireland.
Yeah, it must be very easy to get behind the purpose of an organisation like that when you think about sustainability, leveraging Ireland's wind energy, and getting to carbon neutral. It's really it's a fantastic and exciting area to be involved in. But you're obviously, as you mentioned there, you're based in Cork, but not originally from Cork. You're all the way from Ecuador. Can you take us back a little bit as to how you've arrived at the role you're in? I mean, what did you study back in Ecuador? What did you hope to be when you were growing up?
It is a kind of it was a kind of a roller coaster for me to make a decision on what I wanted to be, because I loved mathematics and physics. Like I always thought that I would be an engineer, but my dad had different plans. Like he had a business, and I'm the oldest, so he kind of wanted me to pursue a business career, which I did. I didn't. Plus, like, I think that one of the biggest challenges when you're young, like when you're 18, is actually making a decision on what you want to do. Like at 18, like you're barely there knowing yourself. So
Exactly.
I said, like, I will study business because I could be business in anything. And in Ecuador, it's a little bit different, just about the type, like how you pursue a career. Like I'm officially an engineer. Like that is my title, but then engineer was like 2 first years doing like all the technical subjects like mathematics, physics, geometry, trigonometry, and all of those. But then you have to choose like for 2 or 3 more years where you want to focus, and that's when I jumped into business. And then I had like other type of subjects like marketing, economy, and all of that. So I graduated college, and then I took a year abroad, and I lived in Germany for almost a year, just trying to learn the language, which was very difficult. And then as well, like I wanted to come back at some point to Europe, but I went back to Ecuador. I worked with my dad for a while, but then I didn't like it that much because I was kind of like my dad's shadow. and I didn't like that. I didn't like to be like the boss daughter, and so I quit. And because like I speak English, there were more opportunities for me in Ecuador. In Ecuador, it's not really common for people to be fluent in English. Like, I think that most people could understand and guide you, but not fluent. So I was fluent, and there was an opportunity as well, like in international cooperation. And after that, like I took that opportunity with a local government there. And from then on, I found my passion, to be honest. Like I found that working on development issues and working for a purpose such as like climate change, or I worked as well with projects for vulnerable citizens, but looking for cooperation, looking for funding. And so yeah, I found myself like there, and it was exciting. And from then on, I think that I've been building my career and growing there.
Yeah, you mentioned you went to Germany for a year. So what age were you when you went there? Like you were very young, presumably. Were you just out of college, you said?
Yeah, well, actually, now that I think about it, it was before college. So it was like right after high school and then college. And in that time, I did a year abroad in Germany. I was only 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
And would you recommend that? Like, how was that experience overall at that young age? Is it something you think was very important to do? Something you enjoyed? Would you recommend people get out of their country
Definitely.
And experience something different?
Definitely. Yes, because first it gives you the sense of independency and at the same time responsibility, which I think that I was already that, because being the oldest, and my parents were divorced and all, so I think that gave me just a little push, and just making friends from different parts of the world, and those challenges that will the money make it until the end of the month? Can I keep it, like keep myself on a budget and stuff? So I think that the sense of responsibility was very important for me in that time. I also built confidence because I was alone. So I was making friends. I was getting the support as well from classmates or teachers. So it is a learning experience. And to be honest, like after that trip was when I went back to Ecuador, and I was just like, I need to go back. I need to keep myself in that environment that I really liked it. I loved Europe by that moment. So
yeah,
it's finding yourself. It sounds cheesy, but it is.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And you mentioned then, when you went back, you worked in your father's company. And I guess that will resonate with a lot of people that might listen, especially as, younger people who might feel that sort of parental pressure or expectation on them. And I read a very interesting article in the Irish Times about you, which goes through a lot of your background. But you did kind of feel that pressure to go in and work with your dad, and you got that experience. So what did you take from that, and how did you, I suppose, maneuver moving out of that role? Because that must have been a hard decision to leave that business and decide to pursue what you really wanted to do yourself.
It was, but what I take from that experience as well is that I could do it. And I think that if anyone is doubting and saying like it's having doubts and saying like, can I do it? Or I think that's a good sign, because, and I always say like, you never regret being brave, because you're just taking that opportunity. It will build confidence, because then you know that it is a challenge and I did a struggle, but at the same time, once I achieved things, they were my things. No one helped me there. Like I was doing it for myself. And I think that that is the greatest achievement for yourself. And then you have nothing to regret. You have stories to tell. You live your life. That is actually living a life. So, but yeah, like my dad was a little bit resentful after that, but I proved to him as well that it wasn't personal. It wasn't like I was rejecting him as a dad. Like, to me, he always was, always will be my dad. And but he knew that I had to grow. And after that as well, like, I remember calling him because I was having a bad time at that job, at a job after that one. And I know that as much as he wanted to help me, he decided not to. He was just like, yeah, that's life. It's tough. And I was like, yes, it is. And I was like, I'm not going to back out. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to show him that, yes, no. And then I passed that time, and then we were talking once, and he was just like, I knew you wanted to come back, but I knew that you had to learn, and that decision was good for you. So it was.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And I mean, unfortunately, you lost your father after that, and you described him as one of your best friends. But it really, you realised in the end through conversations that he was very, very proud of that decision you made and where your career path led you afterwards, which is fantastic as well.
Yes, he said that to me, and like a few days before he passed away, and I carry that with a lot of pride. And when I make career decisions, like, I always bring as well his advice, because I used to have long conversations with him about life, about his career as well, about my expectations, where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And it was his words are still with me, so it was nice to just have like that little push as well, and for him to say, like, I'm proud of you, I see that you're doing good. So.
Yeah, so important to have that. That's great. And so tell me then, how did you end up in Ireland? How did that all happen?
Yeah, so I really wanted to do a master's in an English-speaking country. I've always liked English. Like, the first time that I remember learning English was when I was a kid and I was translating songs. Because I wanted to know what the meaning of those songs. And Ecuador is very much influenced as well by American culture. So I grew up with MTV and all those shows. So, and then one of the options was as well the UK, Germany, the Netherlands, like some masters that are in English there. But, and it was initially my plan to come back to Europe and do my master's in 2017, but that's the year that my dad got sick, and I postponed my plans. And then in 2018, like, I did a little bit more research on the type of programs and Ireland's culture, and I was working as well for an NGO that is based in Brussels at that time, and it was remote type of work. And I talked to my boss, and my boss was delighted. She was like, yeah, come over to Europe again, and it'll be easier as well for us, because we'll be in the same time zones and everything. So that just opened that opportunity as well. So I started to do a little more research on the type of programs, and to be honest, like, UCC has been amazing from day one. Like, my director contacted me immediately saying, like, yeah, this is the program. If you have any questions, come back. UCC has an international office as well that provides support to international students. There's also a coordinator of Latin American students there, and she was brilliant. She even helped me out to track my visa process and all. So once I just asked about the program, everything was fairly simple, and that just led me to say, like, yes, this is what I want. This is what I want to do and where I want to go. So that's how I ended up in Ireland.
Brilliant. And talk to me a bit about that program then. I mean, what did you get from that? What did you learn in it?
Yeah. So the master's that I did is in international public policy and diplomacy, and to me, as I said, like, Ecuador was very much influenced by American culture, and obviously Europe is a whole new world. And for me, it was learning more about, like, Europe. It was also times when Brexit was literally happening. I remember being in a lecture and there was a debate over that, and it was so interesting to see, like, historic moments happening right there for me. And so it was like some of the lectures were global politics, for instance, where we would be discussing different type of issues like poverty, food security, national security as well, and comparing them as well with other countries. We would have like other subjects on the European Union, and obviously like the type of organizations like the European Commission, how it's built, and what does it mean, like the type of regulations that exist, like which one has more weight on the other. So it was very diverse, and at the same time, to me, everything was new. There were things that I had no idea, and I had to go to books or Google, like, what does this mean? While I think that my classmates, obviously being European, most of them, they knew. And so, yeah, that was a little bit challenging for me, but at the same time, I think that it just being curious takes you a long way. So I wouldn't care, like, I would ask questions. I always said, like, I had nothing to lose. Like.
Brilliant. And when you finished the Masters, Vanessa, then you went, am I right in saying you went and worked at UCC following that? Is that right? Yeah,
actually, how it was is because the Masters offers also a work placement opportunity. So I took the work placement, and for that I had to quit the job that I was working in this NGO that I mentioned. So I quit that, and I took the work placement at Auquilla, which is the organization that holds Gas Networks Ireland and Irish Water, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So it was I was working for that that organization as part of my work placement, and I was doing like the side of policy and communications as well. Like I was supporting that side, and while I was working, I had already made a decision that I wanted to stay in Ireland. Also, Ireland gives the opportunity to international students of applying for one more year after the visa expires, like the student visa, to precisely, I think, explore the type of chances that there is like for work and adapting to the culture. And I think it's one of the greatest things that Ireland offers. And so I had decided that I wanted to stay, and that's why I decided as well to quit my job, which wasn't easy, and take a work placement. So the work placement also gave me the opportunity to network with a lot of people that even today I still work with, and putting myself out there, talking to people. My boss back then as well, she was super supportive, introducing me to everyone and saying like, look, she's doing her work placement, but she's actually looking for a job here in Ireland. So if there is any opportunities, here she is. And so it was all about building those relationships and looking for these opportunities. And one of them was UCC. And it went well. Like I did the interview, the project was great. The people that I worked with in UCC and beyond UCC were also really, really nice, really knowledgeable. I actually worked as well for that project with partners from Tyndall National Institute, from MTU, Cork City Council, Cork County Council. So it was all I was doing as well. I was like, as I said, like building those relationships and getting to know people, getting to know also more about Ireland's system, the governance here. And I spent 2 years in UCC as a research support officer. That was like the official name as part of UCC stuff. But the project, the initiative that I was working on was called Cork Smart Gateway. And it was an initiative dedicated to make Cork as a smart city, as a smart region. So that's why like the university was there, like in terms of research and supporting from the School of Computer Science, and Tyndall was as well there, and just connecting the dots. That's what I say, of how these type of technologies contribute to making Cork smart, or to projects and making Cork smarter. So
just on that one, Vanessa, people might have heard of, smart cities. Can you just give a brief overview of what that means for a city to be smart in that context?
Yeah, so I think that a city to be smart, usually we associate with technology, but I think that a smart city is actually an efficient city. A city that is not wasting resources, that is actually taking the resources that it has and using it well. In terms of like people's time, to me, one of the biggest indicators that a city is smart is actually public transportation, for instance. So if it's on time, if it's connected, if it's taking people to places where they need to be, it's smart. And I think that in that sense, I always have advocated as well for more efficient public transportation in Ireland. But at the same time, like we were making those connections, like we talked to Boss Aaron as well in how we could make their technology smarter, and there was some progress there as well. Then there is so much more to talk about when it comes to smart city, because we talk about like smart economy, and then we say like, okay, startups, how are they getting the support as well from the government or from their own network? And Ireland, I think, is fantastic in that sense. Like there is a lot of support for startups. Like UCC has the program as well. Ignite, I think MTU as well has the this center. I forgot the name, but there is a center as well that incubates startups, and it's fantastic to see that entrepreneur spirit among young people, and using as well technology to solve a problem, or to support even something that already exists. As well, like talking about a smart environment, it's obviously reducing the emissions. And how can we reduce emissions? Like, so in Cork, for instance, there are projects on air pollution. So just measuring the air pollution and saying like, okay, this is what we need to cut, and this is how we're going to address this issue. So all of that, I think, that makes a city smart. Just knowing where the issues are, and applying some knowledge, building a project on that, and connecting the right partners for it.
Yeah, interesting. And you mentioned a couple of times, Vanessa, and I don't want to skip over it, that you were working remotely for an NGO in Brussels. Can you talk a little bit about that role and the experience there as well?
Yes, that was an amazing opportunity as well for me. So the organization that I was working for is called Regions 4. And how I got to know that organization as well is because, and as I said, like that, this is how my career has been built. I was working for the local government in Ecuador, and this local government in Ecuador was a member of this organization. And so then after I left the government, I joined this organization because I knew them from my previous role. And the organization was actually member-based, and all the members were regional governments. Like in the case of Ireland, they would be like the counties. It wasn't cities, it was more regions. And it was also like, it had different programs. The program that I was coordinating was on climate adaptation. So I would be talking to the different environmental units within these regions. Like there were regions from Italy, regions from Senegal, regions like all over the world. And it was really interesting to get to know like what the regions around the world are doing in terms of climate adaptation, and how they're suffering, like flooding in some parts, then others were going through a lot of rain, and but that led to flooding. And then also there were like states like California who was like experiencing like high temperatures. So it was a lot of diversity as well there. And in terms of climate adaptation as well, we put together, my colleague and myself put together a report on all these issues that the regions were experiencing and how they were tackling them. And actually that report was presented at the COP22. I'm not sure. It was the COP that it was in Poland.
Yeah.
The COP is like it was recently as well, like in Scotland. So it's the big United Nations conference on climate. So it was a great opportunity as well of visibility for the organization and for myself, because we brought this report and we talked about the report with different partners, bringing it to such a big conference. So that report was kind of like one of the deliverables of that program that I coordinated. So that's what I did there.
Fantastic experience, yeah. And when I, you know, as you've talked through all your experiences there, can you tell me what are the main skills that you've relied on? I mean, you've worked in governments, you're working in startups now, different agencies, lots of different entities that you're trying to pull together. What has been the main skills that you would need in a job like yours as you've progressed so far?
I think that is building my own confidence. To be honest, I think that every job needs your own confidence, but there are jobs like IT who requires like a lot of time on your computer and doing your own thing. But when you work with policy at different organizations and, you know, advocating for a cause like fighting climate change, you need to build that confidence that will lead you to talk to other people and to be comfortable in what you're saying. And sometimes that is challenging for me because there are such technical stuff that I need to be really sure that I'm saying the right thing, you know? And but that, I think it requires like as well the support from colleagues. It requires, like, I always say to people, like, to celebrate the little achievements. Sometimes we underestimate like how such a big deal it is for others, but we think that no, it's not. So I think that building that confidence, building those relationships, it's one day at a time, and it requires to be curious. It requires to be adventurous as well, and just asking people questions. Like, so I think that the biggest skill is not to be afraid of asking questions and just talking. Yeah. And one thing that often interests me, Vanessa, as well is you know, education applicable to the role, right? And young people in particular be very interested in what am I going to study in university and how is that going to get me the job that I want. You obviously did engineering as an undergrad, and then you went on, you did international relations and policy. How applicable were those educational courses to your role? How important is it to do something like you've done from a study perspective for the job you're in, or is there other avenues you could explore? I think no. Like, I did the master's that has led me to where I am. It was great to see how to analyze policy and to read what is going on in other countries, because it was international public policy. I think one of the greatest things that the master's gave me was as well the perspective of what's happening in other countries and how can be compared to the policy that I'm working. Like, now I work with Irish policy, but sometimes I hear the news about what's happening in Ecuador, and it's like, oh, that's different. That doesn't happen here. So it's making that comparison and you know, applying as well the right, I suppose, change to it, or support like certain policy. So I think that I made the right choice. As I said, like in the beginning, it is really hard that at 18 years old, you have to choose what you want to do for the rest of your life. And I don't think I would change anything of what I studied. But one thing I'll say is that I want to continue my learning. So I'll probably jump into, I don't know, like a postgraduate or some other course to learn more, a little bit like more on in terms of like chemical engineer, and that is part of my job now. So sure. Because at the moment is my colleague who is supporting me and giving me all the technical knowledge, but there is only as far as he can go. I would need to prepare myself a little bit more in that sense. Sure.
And what's your ambition for the future, Vanessa, in terms of career objectives and goals?
I want to see Ireland succeed, because I think that Ireland has been so kind and amazing with me as well, like giving me so many opportunities. And introducing me to so many people. And I'd say that my ambition is to see the hydrogen strategy taking place in Ireland. I would love to see like that document and say like I was part of that process, and thanks to that, seeing the industry grow. And at a personal level, I think that having that achievement in like, because I will consider an achievement once I see it, is because like we worked like, and not only myself, obviously, with working with a lot of people who are behind that. But that will give me, I would say, like opportunities to keep growing in that sense. So I don't think I have like a goal and, oh, I want to become president of the company or anything like that. But I do have the ambition of seeing the industry like going somewhere, which will be part of the strategy that we are advocating for and preparing.
Fantastic. And as someone, Vanessa, and I know we talked a little bit before we pressed record, as someone who's left Ireland and has settled in a foreign country, you've done you've done the same thing, except you've entered Ireland. What's your impression of Ireland versus Ecuador, and maybe some of the similarities, and also what were some of the challenges you've faced in terms of settling in a foreign country?
So I love it. First of all, I would say like I love Ireland. It's a small country, but I think that gives a lot of sense of community, which I've seen myself blending in a way, because I want to be part of the community. I talk to our Irish people and Irish organizations all the time, and now I have a better understanding. Obviously, like before I came, I knew very little about it. And I think that what I love about Ireland as well is that for being a small country is very welcoming. So I felt that I've caught myself as well saying like, we this and we that, and I'm not Irish. I know that. I'm very proud of being Ecuadorian, but at the same time, I'm very proud that I'm supporting Ireland in a way. And so Ireland is very, very welcoming. At the same time, like one of the challenges that I faced is like I came here my late 20s. So at that point, everybody has like their group of friends. Mm-hmm. And while I have a lot of people that I've known through work, like to count on a friend to go for like a ladies' night or something, it is a bit of a challenge for me. But I think that you move on from that, like you start making those relationships too, like building those relationships with people. Like there is a group of Ecuadorian girls who are in Ireland and in Cork precisely. As I said, like UCC gave a lot of support in putting together South American and students that sometimes we have more things in common, obviously. But other than that, like I feel that it is a very warm country, not weather-wise, but it is very warm, and it is really nice to see how people are that nice to someone who came from a completely different country. And similarities as well. Ecuador is not that big either, but it's very diverse. And like people always ask me, like, "Oh, you must miss the weather," and I'm like, "Not really," because the weather where I come from is also unpredictable. Is also like a little bit cold because it's quite high. It's like 3,000 meters above sea level. So. No, I don't miss the weather from where I come from. And so that I actually find very similar, as well as how green it is.
Yeah.
Like there is a lot of countryside, and I love that part. Like I'm actually also taking my driving lessons now, so I can get my driver license, and I can't wait to actually go for a ride license.
Brilliant. And Vanessa, if you could go back and meet yourself when you were 17 years old, what advice would you give yourself based on what you know now?
That's a tricky one. Because I would say to just pursuing what I wanted to do and trust that instinct. because I think that instinct I always had. Like since I was a kid, I remember asking my dad if he could give me like the international section of the newspaper. I was always into international things, and I think that trusting that instinct is very important. So probably I would say to the Vanessa, the 17-year-old Vanessa, like just do that and trust that instinct. Probably do it a little bit earlier. Although I think that what I've built, like all those years as well, has led me to where I am. But as I said, like I regret nothing, and I think that it's because since I was a kid, since when I was 17, I was trusted that instant. I was like, for instance, like my dad, after graduation, he said like, "What do you want? Do you want like a car or a big graduation party?" And I was like, "No, just send me somewhere." So I wanted to see the world. I wanted to see more countries, and I would say that advice to anyone as well, like travel, get to know other people, get to know other cultures, because then you realize what you actually want. Like, do you want to be like that, or are you comfortable where you are? And that's important too, and that's okay too. I have like super happy friends in Ecuador, doing their own thing over there. So yeah, just trust in the instinct and pursuing that dream. It's important.
That's excellent advice, Vanessa. And it's been a pleasure meeting you this morning. And thank you very much for coming on again and sharing your stories and your advice. And I wish you all the very, very best of luck in the future as well.
Thank you so much, Brenda. No, it was lovely talking to you and sharing a little bit more about myself.
Great. Thanks, Vanessa. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.